1. When I was in 6th grade, I grew up in a tough middle school, or as some say, junior high. You couldn't let people push you around. At that age, I was your typical class clown and would make fun of people, but in good taste. Well, one day I made a joke towards this one 7th grade kid I didn't even know. But he wasn't laughing. This threw me off because every reaction I ever got was positive. I honestly forget the dude's name, so I'm gonna call him Punk. Punk started fucking with me every day. He was in 2 of my classes. He would knock my stuff off the table, make jokes that weren't in good taste, and would throw shit at me. I would brush it off and laugh it off for a while, because I was this tiny, short little dude, and he was at least a 5'10" 7th grader, with a heavy reputation, I found out later. So he's been, I guess you could say, bullying me for the last 2 days. That's when Friday was coming up, and I kid you not, we exchanged words with the most cliché movie-style confrontation. He said, "This Friday during ISS, I'ma beat your ass." For those who don't know, ISS stands for In-School Suspension. We both got in-school suspension for that Friday because of a ruckus we were making. Now at my school during ISS, there is supposed to be a security guard present. But I was used to being in ISS and I knew the guard would step out for 15 minutes, leaving us kids alone. So once again, crossing paths as school was ending, Punk told me that he was going to whip my ass tomorrow. I've never shown any type of fear toward him, but I wasn't defending myself either. However, he hasn't actually put hands on me, so I knew I was in for a fight. A fight I knew I'd most likely lose. Sure, I've been in plenty of fights even before middle school, but come on, are they really considered fights at that age? Anyway, I get on the bus. One of my buddies was asking me what I was gonna do. I said I didn't know. He said, "Do you think you should tell the principal or a teacher?" I was like, "Hell no, dude, I'm no snitch." And that would make things worse, and I'd look like a bitch. I knew I had to fight him, and thought about what to do on what seemed like a longer than usual bus ride home. I get dropped off, head for the house, and see my old man working on the lawnmower in the front yard. He was still a bit upset with me because I had gotten ISS, but he could tell something was wrong. My dad asks, "What's up, bud? You okay?" I tell him, "Pop, I'm not gonna lie. I've been getting punked by this kid at school all week, and he wants to officially fight me tomorrow." My dad looks concerned. I then tell him, "This dude is like 6 feet tall, he's easily gonna win." First, my dad asked like my friend if he wanted it reported to the school. And once again I said my whole spiel, and I could tell he looked proud of that. Daddy ain't raised no punk. But just to make it clear, I do not condone fighting. Be cool, kids. Anyway, my dad rubs his beard chin and gives me the only advice he thinks can work and says, "Get a roll of quarters, grip them hard in your hand, and just swing as hard as you can." I thought that was pretty smart. It could add some weight to the punch. It was now Friday. Punk came up to me during the lunch period and decided he wanted to fight me here and now. I put my hand in my pocket. He starts getting close to me, and with all my might, I throw a mean jab to his jaw. Now this is where the TIFU embarrassing part comes up. My dumbass kid mind didn't realize when my dad said a roll of quarters, he meant ones you wrap up in paper and deposit to the bank. Well, I just gripped a shit ton of quarters in my pocket. Once my fist met his face, the quarters flew everywhere. Believe it or not, I really decked him good. He started to get back up, but the teachers got involved. So what was the outcome? Turns out Punk was already on thin ice with the school, so our fight got him kicked out. As for me, I got suspended for a week. My dad got pulled out of work and was called to the school. When my principal explained to the dad what had happened, he actually smirked and almost laughed. This made my principal upset, but my dad made sure I was going to be in trouble. When we got into his truck, I thought he was going to give me a whooping for getting suspended, but instead he rubbed my head and said, "You fucking idiot, you actually held loose quarters." He was laughing, which led to me laughing. My dad had me do chores when I was suspended, but I never actually got in trouble. My mom was pissed, but my dad pretty much said, "I technically told him to do that, so let's give him a break." I don't regret punching that asshole or getting suspended, but what I do regret was losing at least $4 worth of quarters. 2. As with most TIFU, this did not happen today, but the memory was spurred by a post I saw on the front page. During the 2008 election, Obama came to my university to give a speech. I went through all the usual security screenings and made my way to my seat. I was about 3 rows from the front, but on the outside seat of a row right against the entry and exit way for the future president. When Obama came out, he went straight to the podium to give his speech and do a Q&A session. When he finished, he made his way down the steps, where the crowd rushed to shake his hand. I was probably 4th or 5th down the walkway to shake his hand. Everybody in front of me was not only shaking his hand, but handing him copies of his book to sign. He had a pen in his hand and was signing away. I thought to myself, damn, I don't have anything for him to sign. Oh wait, yes I do. My ticket I used to get into the event. There was only one issue with the ticket. It was in my jacket pocket. My inside jacket pocket. So as the future president is 4 people away, I hastily reached my hand into my jacket pocket to grab my ticket, but my hand kind of fumbled around a little before latching onto the ticket. Just long enough for the 2 Secret Service agents standing right in front of me to notice. They immediately grabbed both my arms, while the one who grabbed my arm that was in my jacket twisted it to pull my hand out of the pocket, while preparing to break my arm off if it was any kind of dangerous object. It all happened so fast I couldn't even utter a word. But when they saw all I had was a piece of paper for Obama to sign, he let go of my arm, patted me on the shoulder, and mumbled something into his headset. I was just able to get my bearings about me, and I was the last person to shake Obama's hand at that event. About that time, the security all turned to Obama and shuffled him through an open door to the hallway to exit. As Obama was being ushered out, he says, "Sorry guys, they said I had to leave now," as he was pointing at the Secret Service around him. So not only did I almost get taken out by Secret Service, I ruined anybody's day that wanted a chance to meet the man. 3. It was October of my junior year of college, and, per usual, my frat had a Halloween party that was hosted at my house. Everyone was dressed up accordingly. There were goblins, vampires, slutty cats, slutty dogs, slutty sluts, characters from movies like Grease and Star Wars. One dude was a hobbit, another dude was the "fuck a rat in the pussy" guy from all those YouTube videos. I dressed up as a medieval knight, which came with the hood, fake chainmail, a sword, the whole 9. On my chest were the words, "A night to remember." When people came up to me and asked, "Hey, Rivy, why are you a night to remember?" I would immediately lift my gown to the side to reveal a 3-foot-long plush penis, accompanied with a saggy set of balls. I waved the fucking thing around like a flag, chased my friends with it, shrieked when it got caught in a door, and plopped it on the beer pong table to distract my opponents from hitting cups. It was a riot and everyone had a good laugh. Later on in the night, many more people ended up coming through than predicted, so I needed to get everything poppin'. The living room was the dance floor, and the main area everyone hung out in, so I had to think of something cool to get the juices flowing. In the back of the room, I saw that one of my big strobe lights was there, but not on. I plugged it in, flipped the switch, and everyone cheered at the rapidly blinking lights as they flashed throughout the room. I danced for a few minutes before heading to the kitchen to grab another beer. During my travels, I saw my frat brother, Jafar, not his real name, sitting in a chair with perfect posture, staring blankly into space. I asked him if he wanted a beer, no response. "Are you alright, bud?" I said as I pat him on the shoulder. No response. I waved the plush penis around. Still no response. I looked over at my friends who were sitting across from me, and they said he's been like that for the last few minutes. All of a sudden, I heard the loudest scream I think I've ever heard in my life. It sounded like a man being blown by a gang of demons as Satan slowly inserts centipedes inside his urethra. I turned around to see Jafar on the floor, shaking and screaming. The whole party stopped and turned to look at this kid wildly seizing. The music gets turned off, lights go on, and a bunch of us approach Jafar to try and help. Then it dawns on me, Jafar is a photosensitive epileptic, and my dumbass forgot and turned a strobe light on. We comforted him as best we could and made sure he wouldn't injure himself, or anyone nearby. I noticed a small puddle of blood coming from behind Jafar's head, so he must have hit it on the ground. Fuck. Obviously, we called an ambulance and rapidly started cleaning up the house of any illegal substances, just in case the cops were to come too. In 5 minutes, we went from a house being riddled with beer cans, cups, trash, drugs, etc., turned into the cleanest it's ever been. Every person in attendance helped clean and throw stuff away. The paramedics arrived and began to address the situation. Jafar finally settled down and talked to medics. He said he was fine but still had to go to the hospital. One paramedic asked what happened, and me, still dressed in my costume with cock and balls dangling, said, "Yeah, some asshole turned a strobe light on." In the end, Jafar was alright, but needed some stitches and time off from class. The party got broken up early and everyone went home. Some people were pissed at me for not owning up to my mistake, but I was too nervous to admit to almost seriously hurting, maybe even killing my friend. 4. It was a typical Friday night around 6:30 as I recall, about a year ago. Being a bored and hungry college student, I wanted nothing more than to get food and get away from the stresses of school. After deciding that I wanted to spend as little money as possible, I quickly ruled out the local Buffalo Wild Wings, since their food is pretty expensive. I decided to walk to the local Arby's just a few minutes away from my dorm. I checked the weather on my phone and saw that it was currently raining. Not a heavy downpour, mind you, just a slight drizzle. Regardless, I zipped up my raincoat and headed out on my quest for food. In order to get to the Arby's, you have to walk out from the dorm straight up to a busy street. This is where my trouble began. You see, the Arby's is on the other side of the street, and slightly down the road a bit. My TIFU occurred when I tried to cross the street to avoid having to walk all the way to the end of the sidewalk to get to the intersection where the crosswalks are. Since it was raining, I had my hood up over my head. My rain jacket has one of those deep hoods that covers your face a little. I saw cars on either side of me, about 30 or so feet away, so I make the ill-fated decision to dash across the street. I don't really remember seeing the other side of the road because, before I realized where I was running, it was too late. Bam! I felt something knock into the upper part of my right eye socket with such force that it felt like someone hit me with a metal baseball bat. It turns out that with my hood slightly over my eyes, I failed to notice a street sign parked at the edge of the sidewalk. I felt dazed as I grabbed the pole to keep from falling. No one stopped to check on me. I did the only thing I could do in that moment. I held my head, which I thought surely was just a huge bruise, and continued my walk to Arby's. I went straight into the bathroom to check myself out, and to my horror, a fountain of blood came rushing from my head. After realizing this was more than I could handle, I calmly walked up to the counter and said, "I think I need some help." The manager sprang into action, calling an ambulance and then speaking to my parents, who I had called to inform them that I was going to the hospital. While I sat in the ambulance, a police officer approached me and asked, "What were you running from or toward? Have you been drinking?" I sheepishly told him, "No, I simply wanted to enjoy a meal at Arby's." After he left, the EMTs took me to the hospital, where I was given 6 stitches. I ended up walking out of the hospital 2 hours later, on my own accord. Since I never got a chance to eat, I walked from the hospital back to Arby's. When I entered, the manager exclaimed, "That's the guy I was telling you about." then asked how I was doing, and asked me if I had ever eaten anything that night. I said no, and she asked me what I wanted, but as I took out my wallet, she stopped me and said, No, it's on me, don't worry about it. Feeling touched, I walked back to my dorm and proceeded to eat my dinner. A few hours later, the adrenaline wore off, and the pain was absolutely horrific. It was 3 a.m. by that point, and after realizing that I had no pain medication to speak of, I debated if I wanted to walk to the Walgreens that was close to the Arby's to get some. In the end, I decided against it, and just cried myself to sleep that night. So yeah, not one of my finer moments, but nevertheless, a night I will always remember. The silver lining is, I got exactly what I wanted, a cheap meal, though I often wonder to myself if the pain was worth it. I had a nasty bruise for weeks after, and to this day, a scar above my eye that reminds me of my stupidity every time I look in the mirror. 5. So I'm a student, and since coming to university I eat a lot of fish, like 5 or 6 times a week. The only way to afford this is to prepare my food from scratch, including preparing my own fish. 15 pounds of salmon can feed a man for 2 weeks, so I'm not squeamish. It also means I have a healthy working relationship with my local fishmonger. Every single trip he will have some wild-caught, exotic, fancy, or otherwise intriguing catch. There will be a little barter. I'll probably buy it. Wednesday. This day is no different. I walk in looking for some collie. Great alternative to cod, please try it, sustainable. When the fishmonger is like, "Ah, my friend, only the best for you. I have the special stock out back." Of course I want the special stock. So he goes out and brings back this little fella, beautifully blue, with just one antenna. He puts it on the table, it wiggles that little antenna at me, and in that moment, I decided that the lobster in front of me was special. I say that I'll decide if I want it tomorrow. I go home, distressed. I don't know why, but in those small moments I emotionally connected with a fucking lobster. I go on a panicked 2-hour frenzy. This is the middle of exam season, I should be revising. Looking for tags, looking up lobster information, trying to work out how I will hide a lobster in my room. Eventually I realize that there is no way of keeping this lobster. I try to find friends and family with tanks that have no fish. Or someone that wants a pet lobster. Nothing. I decide to purchase it and try to find it a home, and if not, quickly put it down with a knife instead of boiling, which I'm confident, having read the scientific literature, causes a lobster distress and pain. Thursday. I feel at this point I should inform you that my confused girlfriend now knows I am getting a pet lobster. Now before I go to the fishmongers, I head to the supermarket. I need supplies to transport the lobster, and if I have to put it down, it will have a nice meal before it dies. I purchase the following. 1. Sea salt. 2. Ice. 3. Salmon, cod, prawns, broccoli, carrots. Stuff that the internet said lobsters like. 4. Tea towels. 5. Apple juice. To help me with the emotional stress I'm currently in. I go to pick it up. The fishmonger, ex-chef, asks if I want it boiled. I say no, that I will cook it myself. He gives me seaweed to keep him comfy and hydrated in. I take it home. Turns out the lobster is male. I name him Qui-Gon because there's always a bigger lobster. I take apart my plastic drawers and pop him in one of them, along with the seaweed and food. I play some underwater sounds I downloaded on my phone. I take pictures and post pictures of him on pet sites on Facebook, looking for a home and or a tank. My third plan was now to have him at my parents' home. At this point my family knows I own a pet lobster. Oh, I have a 24-hour bug and feel very sick. Fantastic. Wait, it's Thursday. I'm meant to be making the 2-hour journey back home today. I have to be back to go to Comic-Con on Friday morning. But this little guy needs a home. Being in a tank isn't good, he needs the ocean. Anyways, me and Qui-Gon have a nice day. I work out a plan to get him to the sea. I'm too ill to make the 6-hour journey to Skegness. However, I can make an 1.5-hour journey to my hometown. and my friend has offered to drive me the other hour and a half to Southend the following evening. I put him on the side, fill the box with ice, place the first tea towel over the ice, then put him back in the box with some food, then food and seaweed. Finally, I put the second tea towel over the box to protect him from the sun. I've made up artificial salt water to the correct concentrations to splash him with. Not great, but should help keep him hydrated. Lots of train delays, tram delays, bus delays. Should be home at 8. I get back at 10:30. Me and Qui-Gon made a lot of friends. Apparently you get a tension when carrying a lobster on a 110-mile train journey. He's eaten some fish, seems happy. No signs of stress such as tail thrashing. I get him home and put the box back in the fridge. He seems a happy lobster. I check on him before bed. Happy lobster. Friday. I wake up at like 7. I check on Qui-Gon. He is responsive and seems okay. I splash him a little more. I head to London. Comic-Con stuff, whilst filled with anxiety over his well-being. I get back, my friend informs me that there is a fish centre that can take him about 30 miles away, and keep him in suitable conditions. I agree on the condition that he will be released in Cornwall, where he first came from. Sadly, when I got home he was unresponsive. After trying to get him to do stuff, gently brushing his eyes, unclipping his claws, etc. It's clear he is dead. I'm legitimately upset. A full-grown, 6-feet bearded man may have cried over a lobster. However, he did eat the salmon and cod, and displayed no signs that he had thrashed or tried to escape, or was otherwise distressed. It seemed that he died whilst numbed from the cold of the fridge, hopefully asleep. I wrapped him in seaweed so it would be like home, and went to the nearest lake, and eased him into the water. He didn't last long enough to get him proper help. I literally spent Wednesday to Saturday with my life revolving around looking up information, caring for, seeking help for, and transporting a lobster. I do not like animals. I do not want pets. Qui-Gon was a special fella. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Embarrassing Stories number 43. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. You know, I had a bit of a debate about including a couple of the stories in this video, the one with the poor fellow who had the seizure, but you know, there was a big puffy cock and balls, so it would have been improper of me not to include it. And the one with the lobster, I thought it was sweet. A little bit silly, but you know, still, I thought it was bloody sweet and worth including, all the same. Poor fella. Anyway, I have a weekend of work in the garden ahead of me, yet again. Didn't actually get to do it last week, because I think the weather was quite bad, as I recall. And that sounds like a plane overhead, but whatever. This is the outro, not a story, so we'll leave it be. Yeah, anyway, where was I? I didn't get to do it last weekend, so hopefully the weather is better this weekend. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So, until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.